Okay, so we have talked about point of view, and we're going to talk about something else that goes with point of view today, but I want to review point of view and what we talked about before really quickly. So, point of view is just the way in which the author allows you to see or hear the text, right? It's who is telling the story. And we talked about 3 different points of view. We're only going to review 2 of those points of view today. So first off, why does it matter who's telling the story? So when a narrator or an outsider tells the story, the reader gets the advantage of knowing what multiple characters in the book are feeling and thinking. Also, the reader gets to experience parts of the story even when the main character isn't present, and that's when we have third person. We talked about the 2 different types of third person, right? But if it's third person, we know it's an outside person telling the story. It's not a character, but we get to hear the thoughts and the feelings of potentially multiple characters, or we get to know what's happening even when the main character isn't there. And that those 2 types. So there was third person limited. Limited means that the narrator is limited to just one character, where third person omniscient means that they are unlimited, right? They can know the thoughts and feelings of all the characters. Another point of view is when the character is telling the story. You get a unique perspective. That word perspective is important. That's what we're going to talk about today. Of the events taking place. This is because the character's own opinions and feelings are going to be affected. They're going to affect how the story is going to be told. So perspective is the way you see something. Perspective is different for each person. It's essentially looking through your eyes at what is happening. So that's first person. That's when one of the characters or the main character is telling the story. So first person, when the character tells the story, we said some of the clue pronouns that we look for are things like I, me, mine, my, we, ours, right? An advantage of this is that we're hearing the thoughts of the character. We get to see the story through their perspective. We get to see the story through their eyes. The disadvantage is that we don't get to hear what the other characters are thinking, and the character that's telling the story may not always be telling the truth, or we may not know all of the information because we're only hearing it through theirs. Third person, that's when a narrator or an outsider is telling the story. We're going to see pronouns like he, she, they, them, telling us that it's somebody outside of the story. We do get to hear the thoughts and feelings of different characters, and we also get to see different scenes. So we get to see things beyond just where the main character is or what's happening to the main character. The disadvantage is that we just don't always get to know the main character as deeply. We still get to know them and learn about them, but probably not as deeply as if the character was telling the story. So perspective is what we're going to see, or is what we're going to talk about today. So perspective is the way you see something. So each person has a very different perspective, because each person's perspective is based on their thoughts, their feelings, the experiences they've had in their life. For example, I have had more experiences than you have because I'm older than you, right? So my perspective on things is going to be different than your perspective is. So imagine if there's a car accident, there are 2 drivers involved. Of course, there are lots of witnesses, 4 people on the sidewalk, a policeman, a pilot of a helicopter that was flying overhead. In this scenario, we have 8 different points of view or perspectives on the incident. So more than likely, we're going to have 8 different descriptions of what's happening with this accident. Imagine, you guys all know that you've probably heard this before. When somebody comes up to one of the teachers at recess and said, this is what happened, right? And there are 7 or 8 people that are around. Well, 7 or 8 people are going to have different takes on what exactly happened, because everything is being seen through their perspective. So on the next page, we're going to watch a read aloud, or we're getting ready to do a video about a story that's called Duck, Rabbit, and we're going to peek a little bit closer into perspective and how that can change what you see and how you see things.